Welcome back to Graibox for a quick talk about why content creation is important. In this video, we're going to talk about the benefits of pay-per-click, SEO, and content creation and compare the ROI between the three. So first off, why did you build a website? So there's different reasons why people build a website. Almost universally, people want traffic to it. And in most cases, particularly ones where you're considering pay-per-click, you're wanting leads out of the website. You want revenue, you want business, things like that. So let's talk a little bit about how the different methods of doing it work. Let's just draw a chart, and then let's talk about over here is money that you spend, and then over on the bottom is time, so the passage of time. So if you're gonna, so first let's talk about pay-per-click. What is pay-per-click? So pay-per-click means that you are purchasing ads. So most of them, whether it's Google, Facebook, Instagram, different ones, function similarly, and it's basically like this. You go out and bid, and you say, okay, if somebody that fits this criteria comes in, I want you to display my ad for me, and I'll pay you 50 cents every time you display that ad, or $1, 30 cents, whatever it is. And then and then you normally set a budget, right? So you say, okay, I have $100 to spend this week. Let's do it. And then they keep spending your money till you run out, and then they'll show somebody else's ad after that. And then the bidding system basically works that they'll show whoever's the highest first. So if I said I'll pay 50 cents, somebody else said I'll pay 25 cents, and somebody else said I'll pay $1. They'll do the $1 one first until they run out of budget. Then they'll do mine. When I run out of budget, then they'll do the 25-cent ones. That's roughly how it works in very simple terms, right? So what does that look like over time? Sure, let's use red. Okay, so basically it's really simple. It's just a straight line, right? So if I pay, and your marker is your bid, right? So whatever I bid, every time I bid, I get a click. So that's how pay-per-click works. Very simple. Now, what are the advantages to pay-per-click? Well, one is that I can control how high or low that is very quickly, right? So if I say, okay, this is the outcome that I want is twice as high, I can say, okay, great, I'm going to raise my budget, and now my line's up here, so I'm going to get twice as much view. Or I can say, well, I want to lower my budget. Okay, no problem. Now my line's there. It's a horizontal line, but I can kind of pick wherever it is. What's the disadvantage of pay-per-click? Well, it's really simple. It's what happens when I stop paying. So in pay-per-click, if I'm paying like this, and then all of a sudden I say, well, I want my budget to go to nothing, well, now my return's going to be nothing, right? That's just how it works. That's how pay-per-click works. Now let's talk a little bit about content creation. So content creation, sure, let's do blue. Let's call it content. As you can see, my handwriting is wonderful. So content creation has a different shape. So content creation winds up looking exponential. Okay, so why is that? Well, the reason why is because when I write content, first off, what is it? So that's writing something on my website that people could come and see. So that could be a blog page, that could be an infographic, that could be a landing page, that could be whatever page that I want on there. So what happens is that once that page is there, it can continue to generate business. So for example, I used to work with a company years ago, and they wrote a blog post, like at the time I was talking to them, it was like 7 years before. And every month, that one blog post created about 7 leads. And so the reason why it's exponential is because really what I'm doing is I'm stacking, right? So if I invest in an article, it looks like this, right? And then now if I invest in another article, it looks like this because the old article is still producing, right? Then if I make another article, then if I make another article, then if I make another article, and that's what gives it, if I come back, that's what gives it kind of that exponential shape, is that I'm increasing it over time. What are the drawbacks on it? Well, it's time consuming. And so if I want to say, hey, I'm going to write an article, so let's compare it with pay-per-click. That's what's there already, right? So in pay-per-click, if I say, hey, I want twice as many leads, it's easy, right? I just increase my budget. Done. In content creation, if I say, okay, I want I want twice as many articles. Okay, there's a process to follow, right? Maybe I write them myself. Maybe I outsource them to somebody else. Maybe I use different tools. There's keyword research. There's all these different things that go into it to make sure that I'm performing or that I'm creating high performing content so that they can turn into an asset for me. Another downside. And this downside actually is on both pay-per-click and content to some extent, and that is there's a little bit of hit and miss, right? So for example, if I write a content piece, it may be the best piece ever. It may be terrible and nobody likes it. I don't know that, right? Until I measure and iterate and do that, I don't know it. I was going to say that as a downside is content creation. It's really a downside for pay-per-click as well, although pay-per-click is easier, right? So if I'm focusing, let's say I'm selling computer monitors, right? And I think, hey, there's this particular keyword called monitor. I want to get everything that says monitor on it, right? Well, let's say somebody searches for a baby monitor and somehow that winds up in my thing. Well, now I'm spending money towards a lead that's not actually a lead, right? I'm paying for the click, but nothing's happening. So it's similar, but it's usually a little bit easier. There is some iterating that goes on either way, and to maximize your return on that. Okay, so now the third question is, what is SEO? So SEO stands for search engine optimization. SEO is a key in digital marketing, helps things to go well. So it's a pretty broad term. And broadly speaking, it is talking about the page experience, the keywords, the descriptions and titles that show basically how it works. And basically what happens is it winds up being a multiplier. So if we think of SEO, it's a multiplier, right? So let's say that you have a company that's doing SEO for you, and they are fantastic. Let's just say they're great. You still need to think of them in terms of percentages. So they might be great, and that might mean, well, they can do plus 100%. So they can double your efforts. Okay, so if that's on pay-per-click, I should say, what does that look like? Well, now this whole red line just went up, right? And what that might look like is they do such a good job doing keyword research. They do such a good job at once they get on your site, saying the right things, helping them down the funnel so they can be where they want. And now my pay-per-click return is up there. It's still flat. It's still the same shape, but it's substantially higher, right? What does it look like for content creation? Well, the same thing. It's just a multiplier. No, those aren't very good arrows. Let's try it again. So we have an arrow that comes up, and now it's like this, right? And so again, it's the same shape. You're still creating assets, but the way that those articles are created can be more or less effective, right? And the reason why I say it's a multiplier is because what happens if nobody's coming to my website? Well, SEO doesn't matter that much, right? Because I'm not influencing anybody's experience. What if I'm not getting any impressions in Google or in Facebook, a different place where I'm trying to go? If nobody's seeing it, then it doesn't matter if it's 20% better because nobody's seeing it. So I get 20% more of nothing. So that's essentially how SEO works. Now you can see how they all interact, right? So let's say, for example, I have a brand new website, right? And I'm saying, okay, I have this brand new website. I have this great message. I have this great product. I want to bring it to the world. Well, I have a few different options, right? So the first off is I can do SEO stuff. Well, that's great. I'm going to start out with SEO in mind, but until I have either some pages, which is the content, or I have some ads, nobody's coming to my website. There's nothing to come from. So I need a little bit of content to begin with, right? And then depending on how fast I want to go, I can put pay-per-click on there, or I can put content in there, or some combination to bring traffic and leads and revenue over time. So what is Graibox? So what Graibox does is it assists in content creation. So it becomes a content creator for you that can create drafts that then you just need to edit and put in. So why is that important? Well, you'll notice in this chart, let's grab another color. Let's grab green. So right here in this case is kind of our crossover, right? So once we've gotten this many articles, now I'm actually getting more money for my articles on content creation than I am on pay-per-click. And so most companies, if they're looking at something like that, right, they would either say, okay, great, now I'm just going to keep getting more and more leads, or they could say, okay, great, now I'm going to actually drop, let's see, I could drop my pay-per-click budget a little bit, right, and say, okay, I'm going to bring my pay-per-click budget down, and I'm going to bring my I'm going to just put a little bit extra money into content because now my ROI is higher, right? Or I could leave them both high and say, no, I'm going to leave them just like that and keep going because I want to just create more and more leads. There's a lot of different options, but the point is at some point you kind of have this break-even point. So down at the bottom, I wrote time, right? But that's actually not 100% correct. When it comes to content creation, it's more volume than time. So what does volume mean? Well, volume means, let's see, that's not very good. Apparently my writing with my fingers is not as good as it could be. So what I mean by volume is this looks at the content velocity or the rate, right? So I'm publishing an article, I'm publishing another article, I'm publishing another article, I'm publishing another article, right? And that's how that's growing over time. Well, what would happen if you could create content twice as fast, or 10 times as fast, or 20 times as fast? Well, it's going to do a couple things. Number one, it's going to compress this whole chart over, right? So it's going to be exponential quicker. The other thing is in content creation, there's one other idea that's a little bit magical on it, and that is that the rising tide lifts all the boats. And so before, when I said, hey, we're doing content, remember I had the little boxes and said, well, if you draw another box, if you draw another box, if you draw another box, it gets higher. Well, that's not entirely accurate. What actually happens is that if you have, let's get rid of this. I'm gonna delete a bunch of stuff so I can redraw. That's probably as much as I can go back. Okay, so what actually happens is I'm going to have this one. I create one content piece and it's just like that, right? Well, what happens is when I create a second content piece, so this stacks on top, but it also moves this up just a little bit. So it's not actually flat, it's just a little bit sloped, right? It's just coming up just a little bit. And that's part of what contributes to the exponential shape of that. So with Graibox, what you can do is you can create content more quickly and then lift the tide of all the pieces that you're already doing. And then when you add that with SEO, and then you add that with pay-per-click, you can really make something magical in terms of getting a lot of traffic to your website and then a lot of conversions once they're coming. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow we'll be posting a video that's actually showing a case study. And the case study is for a company that right now their SEO is good, their pay-per-click is good, and their content creation has not been so good. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in with Graibox and we're going to try to make content creation be great, and then we're going to watch and do updates. We're going to do a 10-week challenge and see what happens over time to the traffic and the leads to this website. So you won't want to miss it. Check out the links in the video below. I'll have links to a number of things that relate to this video. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your day.